looking for any other ground. How can a person that has been found guilty by 11 members of the committee, guilty of violating, gross violation of the Constitution, be allowed to continue to serve as deputy governor of a county? Mr. Speaker, there are things you'll do in this house, if you're not careful, that will return to haunt all of us. On the one hand, the House cannot find any person holding public office guilty of gross violation of the Constitution of Kenya, and on the other hand, give him another opportunity to serve in a public office. The Speaker, secondly, the committee has found this deputy governor of Siaya guilty of abuse of office and gross misconduct in respect of allegation 4 on misleading the public. Mr. Speaker, Chapter 6 of the Constitution speaks to integrity. And integrity, Mr. Speaker, is not just about fiscal discipline. Integrity is also about the relationship that us, as public servants, as leaders in this country, the way we relate with the people that we lead. Our choices, the Speaker, that we make to either lead or mislead our people. The Speaker, the Deputy Governor, on his own admission, in the same report, and the Speaker, I would very quickly add that if actually the committee, a section of the committee, is uncomfortable with page 11, there's nothing that would have stopped them from moving a motion to expurge page 11 from their own report. So this
Senator Thangwa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to oppose that recommendation and that report from the committee. Mr. Speaker, and I must thank the side of the minority, because as we stand here, we have not been threatened with maandamano if we are to go either way. So I can say we are fine. Mr. Speaker, on this house, on the floor of this house, about 2 years ago, the senator for Siaya then, none other than James Orengo, said here on this floor that impeachment generally is a political process. Mr. Speaker, the question I'm asking the members of this House, are we going to be used to sanitize the politics of Siaya, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, when I look at this report, and I want to tell the members of this House who are saying about page 11, we do not know how they arrived on this, Mr. Speaker, but of course they signed on a report that was agreed by the majority. Just to say, yes, we agreed to what we said, nevertheless not talking about the number 6 and number 5, Mr. Speaker. But I want to ask myself, Mr. Speaker, when you say you're removing somebody from office because he said in public that a certain CS was forced to resign, Mr. Speaker, is that a threshold enough to remove somebody from office? How many times have we been lied to, Mr. Speaker, by leaders whom we respect from either side, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, on that issue of political process, I keep on asking, are we going to allow this House to be used to play politics of Siaya, Mr. Speaker? And that's why I oppose that report. Mr. Speaker, we are told by that report that the said deputy governor was interfering with procurement processes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we do have directors of procurement in every county, Mr. Speaker. It is not the deputy governor. And if at all you're blaming the deputy governor, the person who is supposed to be here is the county executive, who is the governor of Siaya, James Orengo. He is the person who is supposed to be on this floor. Mr. Speaker, I saw it on the other day.
Honorable senators, especially those from the government side, we will still need these chairs after this session.
Thank you. I think I still have my 1 minute. Mr. Speaker, this House has been sitting here discussing important motions, important issues, having the CSs coming here to discuss matters of national importance. But the minority move out or always go out of the House. They are now here, Mr. Speaker, just to kick out somebody because somebody said a certain county secretary was forced to resign. Mr. Speaker, is that what we want this Senate to go down as? A House that discusses irrelevancies? Mr. Speaker, do we want this House to be taken as a House that only discusses on removal? That's why their side is full, Mr. Speaker. Look at them. Beautiful. They are here. Mr. Speaker, look at them. Look at them. Look at them, Mr. Speaker. But when we are discussing issues of the county the national importance, they move out. I urge them to move out even now. Go, so that's Siaya.
What is your point of order, Senator Eddy? Senator Eddy, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And I rise on point order number 101, 4. No senator shall impute improper motive to any other senator or to a member of the National Assembly except upon specific substantive motion of which at least 3 days notice shall be given, calling in question the conduct of this senator or member of the Assembly. Mr. Speaker, as I talk about that point of order, Mr. Speaker, let me first of all extend my most sincerest gratitude to you for your empathy beyond sympathy that you have accorded me in this last week that has been excruciating in the hospital, and other senators who have also been very supportive. I know Senator Cheriot was just joking, but he's my captain in soccer and he has been very supportive during my time of surgery. I actually left the hospital this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, and on very strong painkillers to go through this process. And it's very disappointing to hear the Senator of Kiambu imputing that the minority side, the senators on the minority side, are the one who have brought this case to this House. That the senators from the minority side are the ones who have come to the floor to prosecute the deputy governor of Siaya. I have been following this entire process, and I have actually been very keen not to even call members of the committee to check on them because of the honor and dignity that we give this House. Mr. Speaker, is it in order to reduce this debate to an issue of minority versus majority? But most importantly, is it in order for a senator of Kiambu to suggest that it is the senators from the minority side who are demanding for the impeachment of the deputy governor of Siaya? And Mr. Speaker, can he actually be able to give that evidence, alluding to all these honorable members who I think that in this House are just as honorable and as reasonable and as passionate and committed to the Constitution, the same way I am seeing the honorable members from the majority side, who I really, really respect. Mr. Speaker, I will request you to rule on that.
Now, honorable senators, you know, if we avoid these side shows, we can prosecute the business before us so well. Now, Senator Karungo, the senator who spoke and contributed to this motion from the minority side is only Senator Enoch Wambua. We don't know, at this juncture, we don't know the rest, whether they are supporting or they are opposing. So to make a blanket statement that the minority has a position and therefore impute a motive, I think to that extent, Senator Karungo, you are out of order, and proceed to retract that statement. The statement that referred to the minority side as senators who are here to remove the deputy governor, but otherwise for other businesses, they're not there. I think I've seen a lot of consistency in faces from the minority side debating on other businesses apart from this. So that blanket condemnation, Senator Karungo, kindly proceed to retract as we proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All I wanted to show is how important this motion is, that even the senator who is raising a point of order, he came by ambulance to show. I'm just trying to show you how they take serious some of these issues, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karungo.
That will come out of the hospital,
order,
Mr.
Senator.
Speaker.
Order, senators. Have a seat, Senator Karungo, please. Now, this matter before us is very crucial. I will be at pain having you watch these proceedings from the lounge. So you help me. Will you be orderly? You'll all be in this chamber to the end. The way we are moving, we may end up going to voting with very few of you. Kindly, Senator Karungo, I have ruled you are to stand and retract that statement, not to explain yourself. I have ruled on your statement.
Mr. Speaker, I really respect the chair. And of course, I cannot argue with the chair. So I retract what I had said for me to prove a point later on. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I think I had a minute because I was interrupted. For me to conclude, Mr. Speaker, the grounds for removal of either a governor and a deputy governor are well put in Article 181 of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And it talks about gross violation, talk about abuse of office, physical or mental incapacity, and of course, if the deputy governor has committed a crime, Mr. Speaker. When we say...
Senator Sifuna, what is your point?
I hope I save my minute again, Mr. Speaker.
Can you save the time remaining for Senator Karungo so that he can have his...
Mr. Speaker, there is something that my colleague from Kiambu has said that I believe cannot be allowed to stick. He must also withdraw the assertion that, in fact, we have been refusing to attend certain sessions. It is... Mr. Speaker, I rose up. Please, Mr. Speaker, protect me. I would want that we refer to standing order.
Senator is on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
He must.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 103, we are not allowed to be discussing matters that are the subject of a court proceeding. It is a matter of record that, in fact, the reason the minority side does not attend sessions including foreigners, strangers to this House, is because we have filed a suit on principle objecting to the presence of cabinet secretaries in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, the minority side
are the plaintiffs and the clerk, as a representative of this House, is a respondent, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, for him to cast aspersions on us discussing a matter that is before court, he knows the reasons why we don't attend on Wednesdays. And then he wants to come and tell us here that somehow we choose which business to come and attend and which one not to. Mr. Speaker, I believe that he needs to withdraw those particular sentiments as well.
Senator Sifuna, I'm afraid I'm going to overrule you. That does not amount to a point of order. Proceed and conclude your intervention, Senator Karunga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Instead of Mr. Speaker, I was talking about Article 181 that gives the grounds for removal of anybody from office. Gross violation of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, Governor has committed a crime, abuse of office, and of course physical and mental incapacity. Mr. Speaker, all those laid grounds by the Constitution, we cannot say just because the governor, the deputy governor, gives some information on political platforms that they are subject or they can be used as a basis to remove him from office, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes some people talk just the way we are talking here and I'm told to retract. Tell the deputy governor to retract if at all he said that and people continue working. Would you remove me from office because I said they don't come on Wednesdays, Mr. Speaker? I'm just saying what is supposed to be said. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I do oppose.
Senator Oburu. Senator Oburu, proceed.
Oh. Okay.
Usually speak last.
The Speaker has called Senator Oburu. Okay. Kindly proceed. And if you're not proceeding, your
No,
chance...
I'm proceeding, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Mogeni, what is your intervention? I will allow it under standing order 1.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, as a colleague, I really never want to challenge the ruling of the Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, there is a tradition that has been set in this House, Mr. Speaker, that any time we have impeachment proceedings, we try as much as possible to leave the host senator or the senator whose governor or deputy governor is being impeached to speak last. So, Mr. Speaker, in fact, that has been the tradition in the more than 7 impeachments that we have done on this House. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll kindly urge that following that tradition and on the request that we had as a caucus, you kindly allow the Senator for Siaya to speak last, Mr. Speaker.
I'm informed that the tradition is the host senator does not even speak on such a matter. And therefore, if you choose to speak, it is upon the Speaker to determine when you're to speak. However, Senator Mazayo, when the chair is speaking, you calm down. Okay? However, with the request that has been made by the minority side through Senior Counsel Mogeni, we will allow Senator Oburu to speak last on the opposition side. Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to begin, as my colleague has done, by thanking the members of the committee for a job very well done, Mr. Speaker. And that small discussion that was going on about page 11 and its contents, Mr. Speaker, I have only one observation to make. That in fact, Mr. Speaker, we have a rule of evidence that is known as the parole evidence rule, that immediately anything has been reduced into writing, Mr. Speaker, oral evidence is not acceptable to explain the contents of a document. Nothing could have stopped members of the committee who felt, for instance, that they don't agree with this particular position that had been taken by the committee from either including that information that was coming orally in this particular document, or in fact, Mr. Speaker, writing their own report so that we shouldn't hear from them that there was other information that is outside what is contained in this document. We say you should take pride and responsibility for everything you do in private when it comes to the public. You cannot agree on something in private, then when it comes to the floor of the House, somehow you are embarrassed by some of the decisions that you took. Mr. Speaker, going to the contents of the document itself, I want to laud the committee for giving the people of Siaya an opportunity, a chance for devolution to work for them. Because these two indictments are on very serious grounds, Mr. Speaker, of violation of the Constitution and the law. That in fact the governor himself, and I can tell that some senators who have spoken before me have not read this document. In this particular document, Mr. Speaker, there is an admission by the deputy governor himself. And those of you who know the law, they know the weight of an admission of an accused person is heavy. If the governor himself, at page 40 and 41 of the report, has admitted before the committee that he attempted to interfere with procurement processes, then really we shouldn't be debating it any further. We should take him at his own word. He has accepted to a crime, and he should face the consequences of his decision, Mr. Speaker. This committee are the ones who interacted with the evidence. They are the ones who interacted with the witnesses. They were able to tell certain things that we can't tell from this report, Mr. Speaker. For instance, you know, my senior here is a retired judge. You know that the court that takes the evidence, Mr. Speaker, is not the same as an appellate court that only reads the documents. Because they are able to see the demeanor of the witnesses to tell whether somebody is being truthful or not truthful. It would be unfortunate that we can come up with a committee of this House. They utilize all the resources of the House that they have utilized, all the hours that the clerks have spent, and then when they bring a report such as this one, we want to run away from the report, including, I'm suspecting, some members here who already adopted this report and have not told us anything else other than what we can read here on this document. So I want to thank you, Chairman William Kipkemoi Kisang, for giving the people of Siaya hope that now at least devolution is going to work for them. I want to thank Senator Omogeni, Senator Onyonka, Senator Maanzo, Betty Batuli, Senator Abbas Sheikh, Senator Mwenda Gataya Mofaya, Senator Catherine Muma, Tabitha Mutinda, my delegate, one of my delegates from Nairobi. Thank you for giving the people of Siaya hope that devolution can work for them. Senator Miraj and my friend Mheshimiwa Chimera, thank you so much for standing with the truth that where there has been a violation of the law, these senators, these distinguished senators will stand for the rule of law. They will stand for the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, there is a law, my brother, the senator for Kiambu, wants to trivialize the giving of false information by public officers. Mr. Speaker, it is the Constitution under Chapter 6 that imposes this responsibility on us as elected leaders. Mr. Speaker, there is also a law called the Public Officer Ethics Act. It is actually a crime under that act, Mr. Speaker, to give misleading information in public. So you cannot just tell us, because you people in your coalition, you are used to giving false promises to Kenyans, you tell us that you can just retract. That is not the law, Mr. Speaker. You know, we were promised 6 stadia, we never received that stadia. We were promised 1 million shillings, we were never given those 1 million jobs. Mr. Speaker,
Senator.
You must protect me.
Senators,
pause my time, please.
Senator Sifuna.
Yes.
You are carrying a report.
Mr. Speaker.
You are carrying a report.
Yes.
And your debate ought to be confined to the tenets of that report.
Okay.
I have not seen any study in that report. I have not seen any false promises being addressed in that report. Kindly confine yourself to that report.
Mr. Speaker,
let the
please.
senator be heard in silence. Proceed and conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There was reference.
Senator Cherangei.
Mr. Speaker, can I be heard, please?
Senator Cherangei, I'm giving you a caution.
Mr. Speaker, there was an allegation here that was made that I was responding to. But anyway, I am happy that we as senators got to interact with this particular case. It was very interesting. for the first time in my life, I got an opportunity to see what a 1 million shilling chair looks like. Unfortunately, because I was not a member of the committee, I was not invited to sit on it like my brother, Senator Chimera. And I think having sat on that seat is when Chimera realized that resources that are due to the people of Siaya cannot be used for such things. And I applaud the committee for actually saying that this cannot continue, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker,
Senator Methu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for according me an opportunity to vehemently oppose this report that has been brought on the floor of this House by the Special Committee. I don't want to spend a lot of time thanking them because my colleagues have spoken to them. As a very young legislator, Mr. Speaker, of this House, I have taken time to go and read and interact with the library of this House, Mr. Speaker. And one of the very quotable quotes that I would want to quote today, Mr. Speaker, is a quote that was made in 2014 by a very distinguished senator of Homa Bay, the first senator of Homa Bay, Gerard Otieno Kajwang, during the impeachment motion of the deputy governor for Embu, Dorothy Ndereti. The good senator for Homa Bay said, I want to quote him, that a deputy governor, it is more difficult to divorce a deputy governor than to divorce a wife, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, we should not and we cannot take advantage of the instruments of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, to settle political scores and for political expeditions, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, even as we speak the many things that are being spoken about here, it begs the question, how long has the deputy governor been in power? How long has the deputy governor been the deputy governor of Siaya? Just 9 months ago, Mr. Speaker, the accusers of this gentleman, the deputy governor of Siaya, Mr. Speaker, were merrymaking with him when they were campaigning, and they were very, very happy moving around with him. And just 9 months later, out of issues that I don't want to speak about because they are not part of the report, Mr. Speaker, we are now here for an impeachment. But, Mr. Speaker, I understand where the senator for Kiambu is coming from. An impeachment is not just any other motion that we speak about on this House, Mr. Speaker. Once you have been successfully impeached, Mr. Speaker, because we must understand what are we speaking about. We might destroy the life of a person who otherwise would have been a very innocent person, because once you are impeached, Mr. Speaker, the law is very clear. You can never occupy any other office, Mr. Speaker. I have heard my very distinguished colleagues, and it is in the report, page 92, Mr. Speaker, that one of the charges against the deputy governor, Mr. Speaker, is issues to do with procurement, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, in the report, page 35 to 43, because one of our senators was accusing us of not having read the report, it is speaking about issues to do with disjointed procurement in Siaya, Mr. Speaker. Reading section 47(1) of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, Mr. Speaker, a procurement function shall be handled by the procurement professionals whose qualifications are recognized in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, if then we are speaking about, and our colleagues have spoken here, if, Mr. Speaker, we are speaking about...
what is your point of order,
I hope my time
is... Save the time, the remaining time for Senator Methu, please.
2 minutes.
Senator Edu.
Mr. Speaker, I seek your indulgence on this issue because we are in a very serious issue. And, Mr. Speaker, my point of order is point of order 104. If Senator Methu might sit, Mr. Speaker, the fact that I'm seated, I'm taking the floor. Mr. Speaker, point of order number 104 says a senator who wishes to speak on any matter in which the senator has peculiarity or proprietary interest shall first declare the interest. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you heard the senator of Nyandarua saying that
Senator Yutu.
The impeachment, and I really seek your indulgence, Senator.
Let the senator be heard in silence, please.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, it is on record that the senator said that the Deputy Governor of Siaya is here, and the impeachment motion that is here for other issues that are not in the report. And he has declared that verbatim, that this impeachment motion is here on other issues other than the issues that are in the report. Mr. Speaker, I seek your indulgence. We must respect this House. In as much as people want to use this issue of impeachment of the Deputy Governor of Siaya as a theater for political contestation and punching back here and there, the nation is watching, Mr. Speaker. Devolution is under threat, Mr. Speaker, if the House, such as the Senate...
Senator Eddie, let's have time. Your point of order is overruled. Proceed.
I know he wants to take advantage and debate, but Mr. Speaker, the point that I was making, and I would want to finish there, because we are speaking about procurement. If the governor of Siaya, because we are speaking about issues to do with procurement, if the governor of Siaya has bought a seat for his deputy for 1.1 million, how much more does it cost for the seat of the governor himself if the deputy governor is sitting on 1.1, Mr. Speaker? On a county as disjointed as Siaya, Mr. Speaker, when people do not have medicine, Mr. Speaker, when people cannot have access to health, Mr. Speaker, when children cannot get...
Honorable senators, we need to make progress. Senator Methu, debate the report. Debate the report.
I am debating the report, Mr. Speaker, because, Mr. Speaker, and you know, Mr. Speaker, then we must also be careful. When we speak about...
Senator Methu.
Yes, sir.
Did you just say the chair should be...
I have said we must be careful. I never spoke about... I have never casted aspersions on the...
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, because we then we cannot run away from the question. A school is burning down, and you are going for the deputy principal of that school. Where the principal of there is the one and is the CEO of that institution, Mr. Speaker. Responsibilities on issues to do with a disjointed procurement. How do you bring the deputy governor? And the person who has been vested with the responsibility of being the CEO of that particular county is the governor of that county, Mr. Speaker. Why then do you want to roll the ball to another person, Mr. Speaker? Finally, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, because our friends have spoken, Mr. Speaker. In my very last comment, Mr. Speaker, we must be careful. We must deal with this matter because Senate is a house that is supposed to protect the interest, the justice, the equity of every.
Senator Mogene.
Mr. Speaker, first I want to thank the 11 members of the committee that have returned a unanimous verdict to this House proposing the impeachment, Mr. Speaker, of the Deputy Governor of the County of Homa Bay. Mr. Speaker, can I be heard in silence, Mr.
Senator
Speaker?
Newton. Senator Newton, Senator Murango. Senator Cheptum.
Mr. Speaker,
we have taken time to read to you the standing orders, especially on how to address yourselves when you're in the chamber. Senator Newton, Senator Murango, Senator Cheptumo, I give you a caution. You commit any disorderly conduct, that door is open. Proceed, Senator Mogene.
Mr. Speaker, for purposes of clarity, Mr. Speaker, we have laid in our report at page 87, Mr. Speaker, we have attached decisions from Supreme Court, Mr. Speaker, that are supposed to guide this House on matters of impeachment. Mr. Speaker, if the House can go to page 87 on issue of impeachment, Mr. Speaker, what the court has said, Mr. Speaker, and I quote at that page, all that is required is that the allegations be substantiated. That's what the court has said, Mr. Speaker. And the charge, Mr. Speaker, that is facing the Deputy Governor of Siaya is interfering with procurement procedures, Mr. Speaker. That is a charge that he faced, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, if you read the report and you read even the cross-examination of Senator Chimera, Mr. Speaker, that matter was established beyond reasonable doubt, not even on a balance of probabilities, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this House, Mr. Speaker, has set the record. Speaker, has set the record. Mr. Speaker, we have impeached 2 governors. We have impeached the governor of Kiambu. We have impeached governor of Nairobi. Nobody has been impeached in this House, Mr. Speaker, for committing criminal acts, Mr. Speaker. It's issues of integrity, Mr. Speaker. As we speak here, Mr. Speaker, the report that is before the House, Mr. Speaker, demonstrates, Mr. Speaker, that the Deputy Governor of Siaya wanted to interfere with procurement and prevent youth and women of Siaya, Mr. Speaker, from benefiting from procurement. Mr. Speaker, where does he want the youth of Siaya to get opportunity to do business with the county government of Siaya? Where does he want the women of Siaya to get opportunities of doing business with counties, Mr. Speaker? You cannot, Mr. Speaker, allow such a deputy governor to continue occupying office, Mr. Speaker. And if you want to draw lessons, Mr. Speaker, even if you go to the US, Mr. Speaker, President Nixon, Mr. Speaker, was forced to resign from office, not because he committed any serious criminal acts, Mr. Speaker, but because he tried to interfere with the Watergate scandal, Mr. Speaker. So what is before this House, Mr. Speaker, is evidence that has been brought to this House demonstrating, Mr. Speaker, that the governor tried to interfere with procurement that was to benefit the youth and women of Siaya. Mr. Speaker, we should not allow a person who lives in a glass house to throw stones and get away with it, Mr. Speaker. When he appeared before the committee, Mr. Speaker, the deputy governor gave us an impression as a man who wanted to fight corruption in the county of Siaya, Mr. Speaker. He protested when the youth were being given these contracts, Mr. Speaker. But on the issue of the seat of 1.2 million, Mr. Speaker, he pretended that he was never aware, Mr. Speaker. How, Mr. Speaker, I'm asking this House, do you protect somebody who sits on a 1.2 million seat? And he pretends, Mr. Speaker, that he had nothing to do with the procurement of that seat. Mr. Speaker, the UDA administration, you have told us that you want to fight corruption. Today we want you to demonstrate that indeed you want to fight corruption. If you want Kenyans to look at you as sheep in wolf's skin, we shall know today, Mr. Speaker. Members of this committee, Mr. Speaker, have demonstrated, Mr. Speaker, that we want the accountability mechanisms, the bar on accountability, Mr. Speaker, to be placed very high. There must be a beginning, Mr. Speaker. It cannot be business as usual, Mr. Speaker. When we are sitting here, Mr. Speaker, as judges on this impeachment process, Mr. Speaker, when judges pass a verdict, is to deter, Mr. Speaker. They want to pass a message of deterrence, Mr. Speaker. And this impeachment, Mr. Speaker, we want to send a message either to governors or to deputy governors, Mr. Speaker, that they should never interfere with professionals in procurement, Mr. Speaker. If we don't impeach, Mr. Speaker, if we don't pass this motion, we are opening a floodgate, Mr. Speaker, for governors, for deputy governors, to start making calls to professionals in procurement to interfere with procurement processes. Mr. Speaker, this...
Senator Mũnini.
Bwana Spika, mimi nakataa mambo ya kutimulia kwa Deputy Ngabana wa Siaya kwa sababu tunajua kazi ya Ngabana wakati wa siasa. Ngabana na deputy wake wanatembea kona zote wakifanya siasa. Lakini tunajua wakati kwa kuingia kwa ofisi, Ngabana anashukuliwa kama mtoto ya shule. Pia deputy anashukuliwa kama mtu ana maana yoyote. Na ninataka kusema kwa sababu niko na ushuhuda ya kusema hiyo, pale Embu wakati wa kipindi ya kwanza Ngabana wa Mbora alichagua mandamu alikuwa anaitwa Ndereti. Lakini wakati wa kufanya kazi alimnyanyasa, Kwa sababu Ndereti hakuwa na pahali yoyote mpaka hiyo mama akawa hakuwa ana maana. Alikaa na yeye mpaka unakuta sangira mnyang'anya gari. Na kwa kipindi ya miaka 5 iliisha, mara ya pili akasukua kijana mwingine anaitwa Dr. Kariuki. Nataka kusema for example, nataka kuongea
Senator Madzayo.
Yes.
Senator
Nasema
Madzayo.
mfano.
Senator Munini.